All right, here's Drake Maye, OTA stats in 2 media sessions. Love OTA stats. I'm not joking. Love them. I love OTA nuggets and reports.
Why do you love OTA stats so much?
Because we get to overreact to them.
Okay, good.
Because we get to overreact to them, and then people get to say, it's only OTAs. And then I get to say, well, then why do we send the media?
Why do they do it?
Why do they do it? Why send the media if we can't talk about what happened? This is what happened, kids. He hasn't looked good so far at OTAs. Yeah, but it doesn't count. I love that whole thing. I enjoy that whole back and forth.
I love the voice you use.
But, Tom, how is he look?
Composite Boston sports.
Uneven.
How's he look? Uneven.
He has been uneven. Yeah, the first week, obviously, you cannot discount. I haven't seen 4 picks in a practice, never mind in 9 throws. I don't know if ever. I'm sure at some point, but that was astounding. And yes, a couple were excusable or easy to explain away, but that's a lot of picks, especially for a player who you're hoping will protect the football much better in year 2, because that's really everything his greatness will hinge upon if he reaches it. And then yesterday, you can't really interpret because there's heat coming and the offensive lineman can't block, but there were a lot of occasions in which Maye was moving, throwing on the run, kind of the off-platform stuff, and they weren't just miss type throws. They were wild high, they were behind guys. So the 9 for 17 wasn't a lot of competitive throws. So to me, it just was very uneven. There were good throws in there too. There were smart plays, but there's a level of processing you can see him going through, and he's also throwing a lot more off-platform when he really should just put his feet down and throw it.
So this is for you, Felger. In 2 public displays, that means he's 20 for 34. He is not among the OTA leaders. He's middle of the pack OTA leaders. I want to ask you, Tom Curran. Josh McDaniels said, I'm smitten with the young man in his interview about Drake Maye. Do you still get the sense that he's really excited to work with him?
That's a great question, and I'm only.
Why is that not an automatic
pausing.
yes?
The reason
I'm glad
I pause
it's not.
is
Thank you.
The reason I pause is Josh is so accustomed to a high level of performance that I know him well enough to know he'd be. Oh. So I'm sure that there's times where he's flabbergasted and frustrated, but I don't know who else he would rather be with. Put it that way. You don't understand what he's like.
Yep.
He's a very demanding guy. So there's not going to be. He's going to, hit his clipboard off his thigh and want something more. But I think that he probably looks at it as there's a lot of work to do still to make him the player that he needs to be.
Okay, been teasing it all show. Who might Drake Maye actually miss, potentially?
You know what? At this time last year, they were still doing drops. 5-step drops, 7-step drops, not even throwing the ball. And Alex Van Pelt was adamant that those things needed to be in place. You had to marry your footwork to your arm, marry your drops to your routes, and everything had to work in concert. I'm sure the Patriots now have that same mindset. But it was so precise and so paint by numbers with Alex Van Pelt. We saw an incredible amount of growth from Drake Maye, from the player who came out of North Carolina to the guy he was in late April and early May in OTAs to the guy that he was in September. His fundamentals were precise and pristine compared to the robotic guy we saw.
Yeah. Well, Maye was much more accurate than advertised coming out of North Carolina. Okay, he was sort of wild at North Carolina, and it felt like some of that anyway was mitigated here. So I couldn't stand Alex Van Pelt as a coordinator. I thought it was an uninspired hire from day one. Coordinator, play caller, all that stuff, no use for Alex Van Pelt. As a position coach, though, could he have been all right?
Yeah, I think that he had this is how I'm going to develop a quarterback, and I'm going to stick with this thing. Don't anybody bother me. This works. And he did that, and it worked.
So who is Josh the quarterback coach too, or do they have a quarterback coach?
Don't they have a passing game coordinator?
They have a passing game coordinator.
Thomas Brown,
and
right?
He's the quarterback coach, or do they have another guy who's a quarterback coach? Who's the quarterback coach?
It takes a village, Mike.
Yeah. I'm going to look it up. I mean, do they have a technical quarterback coach?
I think
Ashton Grant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ashton Grant.
Who's that?
So they have.
He's the guy who does the Alex Van Pelt dropbacks. Basically, the upshot of all this is, regardless of who the people are, it's worth watching his accuracy this year, his fundamentals, how often he seeks to throw off platform for no real good reason. Because to me, if you watch the North Carolina stuff, there will be times he could just have set his feet. Instead, he would drift and throw, which is something Josh Allen got into the habit of doing as well in his second couple of years. He'd get back and immediately start drifting to his right and making plays with his arm because he could. But that's not the best way to run the show.
Yeah, I think to say they miss Van Pelt might be going too far, because I think Van Pelt, that was his, so he's gifted at that. He's gifted at looking at quarterbacks. He's done it his entire career. I think he's working with Sean McVay now,
I mean, he
right?
was a quarterback.
And he's out with the Rams. So this is something that this is his skill. But maybe they were so focused on that, the other parts of the operation, as a coordinator. You're an offensive coordinator. You're not just a position coach. You're supposed to be looking at this thing globally, and that's where you have Josh coming in, who has been a quarterback coach in the past, but also an offensive coordinator and can kind of delegate. And so, in a sense, Maye should have some development, some acceleration in year 2.
He should have some acceleration in the offense, but remember how Tom Brady improved with Tom House, with Martinez, Tom Martinez. He did all the throwing stuff, all the fundamental stuff, all the understanding that all the torque comes from the bottom up. He taught himself to a large extent, not that the Patriots wouldn't, but to get to that level, he did that.
Everyone assumes that Maye's going to have that year 2 jump, and we know some guys have had it. Carson Wentz, I mean, stinks. We don't like him now, but people forget that second year.
Look at that.
He was going to be an MVP if he didn't tear up his knee, right? That was the year that he injured his knee. Mahomes won it in his second year. Lamar Jackson won it in his second year. Burrow, 34-14 TD to interception ratio. Trevor Lawrence popped in his second year. So what are we expecting from Drake Maye? He thinks that Maye will have the best second year of any guy, including Jaden Daniels, Nix, Caleb Williams, etc., and all because of Josh McDaniels. Is that putting a little too much pressure on Drake Maye and overrating Josh McDaniels just a skosh?
It's a national perspective that isn't seeing the fine print that we can see, you can see as viewers and fans locally. They don't have good wide receivers. We spent already 10 minutes talking about that. The offensive line should be better. Is it definitely better? We don't know about that. And fundamentally, is Drake Maye going to improve? He had a problem with taking care of the football, both fumbles and interceptions last year. Will he? That's an off-platform throw for no real good reason on that. Complete, great. Everybody sets off the streamers. But you're going to look at those throws if they're incomplete and go, what the hell was he throwing it like that for? And that's, to me, is what's going to be interesting. How hard will Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel be on Drake Maye? And will Drake Maye be accepting of that? Because your show from 2 to 6, the show on WEEI from 2 to 6, every one of our shows that we do will be saying, I thought there was going to be more here.
Right.
It's year 2. Why can't you even be Carson Wentz?
Felger asks, are we overrating Josh McDaniels? Well, I would say it's putting a lot of pressure on McDaniels. That take there from Wickham puts a lot of pressure on McDaniels to get this operation to even middle of the pack. I mean, think about it. Patriots fans are going to lose their minds if they actually see a 30-point outburst at Gillette Stadium. You know the last time the Patriots actually scored over 30 points? I mean, it's been a while. So you're asking McDaniels to take an offense without those receivers and make it watchable and to make it effective week after week. It's a lot to ask, especially if you don't have to bring it back, especially if you don't have Stephon Diggs ready to go in week 1, 2, or 3, or 4.